Hi, everybody. I'm Scott,
I'm Luke.
And I'm Jonathan.
and this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast.
We're really glad that you're listening and watching or whatever you're doing with us here.
There ain't no way to Hollywood.
And we're here. On tonight's show, we are going to talk about actually making film. So, gentlemen, think back and tell us what the first movie you ever made personally was.
The first one? Oh, man. I don't remember the very first one that I ever made.
Well, I do.
Good. Go, Jonathan.
It was on a old. It was one of those camcorders that was like a shoulder rig, and it had a big slot for a VHS tape to put in there. That was and the viewport was in black and white. Like that bad boy, 4:3. Woo!
Let me guess, you're editing in camera,
Oh,
too.
yeah, baby. I was editing in camera. So, I mean, because it was big enough that it was basically a VCR, too. So you could play, rewind the VHS tape on that bad boy, do all sorts of things. Anyway, the first film I did, I don't even remember the title. It was like Webscape or something like that, as we wrote. And the way we did the titles is that we had pieces of paper, and we drew the titles on. We said Webscape, and like a web, and then we put it up in front of the camera, and vis-a-vis, there's your titles. I don't even know if we have this anymore. I don't even know if I don't even know if I can find this. But it was essentially not a story. It was music that I played on a stereo, and that camcorder with the titles that were paper that I kept changing the paper, right? And then me and my buddy, like, we didn't ever move the camera. We just sort of like had a fight, like with like lightsaber blades or something like that, right? Like, oh yeah, we're doing the thing, and then I don't remember if we did anything else besides that. I think that might be as far as we got on that particular endeavor.
I think one of my first films, and I don't know if it was the first one, but I think we called it Breakout from 460. And yeah, it was like the address and stuff. So like, wow. And then like we were doing it like stop motion style with our toys, because like I couldn't actually do anything, right? And but this is stop motion, and I didn't have a camera. I had a little like high 8 camera, and you would record for half a second, and you'd stop. And then you'd move everything, and then you'd have a second, and then you'd move everything, and you'd have a second. And then every once in a while, you'd be like, oh, we got to do this crazy action sequence. So you take, your toy, and you tie a piece of, like, fishing line to it, and you yank it across the screen. And, like, that was, like, an awesome shot, right? Like, we just got this cool thing. And what was really awesome about it is that we discovered that when we got to the end of this film, right, this movie was longer than certain feature-length films. And I was super proud of that. Like, look at how much content I've just produced with this thing.
Luke made a 4-hour-long movie.
No, it wasn't 4, but it was like over 2, I think, or over an hour and a half.
Okay.
So it was hardcore. Like we went for it. And our titles, I printed out on multiple pieces of paper, taped them together, and then you just pull them slowly up in front.
Oh,
right?
look at you being all technical.
Oh yeah, that technical stuff. So
at
that's one of my early ones.
Yeah, I never got around to actually making film until I was in college. At that point, we were shooting on mini DV, which was a big thing.
Come on,
and
man.
that was great because you could actually do stuff. Whereas like like the movie like Cloverfield, like I get it because like they pause like the recording and then like another piece of film shows through. It's because it's in-camera editing, right? Like in-camera editing.
Yeah.
And like that's my life. So you didn't have to deal with that?
I did not have to deal with that.
Did you understand that moment in Cloverfield?
You have to ask me if I saw Cloverfield.
Okay, sorry. I interrupted your story. Tell me, Scott, what was your first film?
So we were doing it for a little festival that the campus ministry I was a part of was doing. And the premise of the story was things that happen when you get to college. And so we did all the crazy roommate stuff, and it was kind of fun. It was weird because I only had 2 actors, one guy and one girl. So the girl had to play both the guy's mom as well as his potential girlfriend at the end of the movie.
Sounds like college to me. Some people's experience of college, not mine.
And I totally wish I could remember the title of that movie, but I'm glad that I don't.
Oedipus Rex. Look it up.
Don't look that up. You don't want to know.
It's culture.
Don't look that up.
All right. Since then, we've all made other movies as well. Guys, what are some of the things that you've learned along the way in your filmmaking that would be good for someone interested in making their first film to know?
It's really hard, time-consuming, and depending on your personality, you may hate everything you make. Or you might be like me and make not great stuff and love it.
Look, if you're trying to make films out there, I think this would actually be something I would imagine you would actually be saying, which is you can do it. Like you can just start and go ahead and try it. Literally, we just told you about the stupid stuff that we just did trying to make movies when we were younger, and so why not just grab the phone that someone has in your house and use that camera and make a movie? That's sort of your big push with kids. So that's one thing. It's just to know, hey, you can just go ahead and do it. But as far as what have I learned, there's innumerable things I've learned just on the technical level, let alone, I'd say show your movies to audiences, even if it's just your family. Show it to people, because sometimes it will suck. Sometimes no one will even tell you what was bad about it, but you'll feel it because you're watching it with an audience and you're just like, oh my gosh, did I really let that happen? That feels so bad.
And yet your audience will still tell you how good it is.
I mean, if they lie to you, yeah.
And if they're your family and they love you, or
they'll
maybe
still tell you how good it
love
is.
you, if they lie to you, kind of similar.
All the same thing
at this particular moment.
Yeah, and again, and I was waiting for you to give it to them, but productionnow.com, this is what I do, right? Like, I love teaching people how to do film. I want to help people make film, and I go through all of the stuff that I'm learning and failing at and getting successes in. So I love talking about that kind of stuff. So if you want to learn some of that, I have an entire website dedicated to it.
And we talk about his short films, but you look at his short film behind the scenes, he learns stuff. You end up finding out some things as well. It's just, but trying to impart wisdom about how many I don't even know how many years I've been trying to make films. I'm not just making films and practicing and learning and studying the craft. It's been easily, has it been 15 years? Maybe.
So I think probably one of the best things to hear is reiterated by many different people. Ira Glass, Brandon, and Frey W, and a bunch of other people. So I'll try and link those videos down below. But basically the idea of, in order to get good at making content, you have to make a tremendous amount of content, and your early content will not be as good as what you want it to be. And you have to push through that. Because we're learning, and I've got a young one, and I praise everything that she does, and I'm not lying to her, right? She's actually she's not Rembrandt, but she's 2, and so when she actually draws hair on my stick figure that I made for her, and it actually is on the head, it's truly mind blowing that she did that. And that's awesome. And so if you pick up your phone, which truly you've got access to cameras and to editing technology that I never did. So you can get started when you're 4, and you're going to be way better than I am by the time that you're 6. And that's cool. And it's okay for your stuff not to be good right now, because you're learning how to do it. And one of the hard things for me is that I want it to be good, and I don't like not being good at something. Yeah. And so I'm like, well, I just suck. Well, okay, yeah, you do right now, but you're going to be better tomorrow if you keep going, and you won't be if you stop.
I got a piece of practical advice for you. Do not shoot vertical video. You got a phone, but don't shoot it where the video is
below.
Like this, right? It's vertical. Don't do that. Do it horizontally. That's the proper way.
Link below.
And I know that, sure, there's new services coming out that want to just do just the phone or social media. And and that's the thing. That's another thing I would encourage you to do. Look at what you want to make and emulate, learn, and find out how they did those things and try to make something that's similar. Imitate, figure that out, because that's what you're trying to do. If you want to make movies, look at good movies you love, and see how they did that and try to emulate, try to get something close to that. If you want to be a social media YouTuber or whatever, look at your favorite YouTubers and try to figure out what they did and how they did it.
And if you're making videos for Instagram, for IGTV or whatever, make it square, fine. I'll hate it, but it's okay because that's for a different audience. It's for a different platform. Right. And there is an audience for everything. Right? Like we were just, you were just talking last week about Bahubali, right?
Bahubali.
And my wife likes like Singham, and like there's people who like Teletubbies, and like just
But
make
those
what you want to
people,
make.
I don't know. Those people, the Teletubbies.
I mean,
don't
it's
know.
fine. It's fine. Like I may
Is
think
it?
that you're crazy, but like
There's got to be cocaine involved in that. Something's wrong with
there's
the
a lot of cocaine involved in a lot of media production, and
Teletubbies
thankfully
is very obvious. I don't know.
that's not where we are. So Scott, what would you say?
I mean, that's a great question, and I think I love.
It's your question.
It is my question. That's why
What a
it's
great question, Scott.
What a great question. Shoot. I mean, Luke, I love your advice about just getting out and making content, and I think that ultimately, like, you're gonna do stuff, and you'll look back on it, like we all can look back on some of our first films and go, "Wow, what was I thinking?"
I was such a genius back then. What's wrong now?
But I mean, just have fun with it. It's not about, except for unless your name is Luke, it's not about making something that's perfect. It's not about making something that you're gonna sell for $1 million. It's about just making something because you're the artist and you get a chance to make it. So go out and do it.
A few things. One, yes, your family's like lying to you or like this joke, like they're just being encouraging to you because you're doing something that's good. But there's also a level of when you try to do something and you did it, hold on to that. When you try to get people to laugh and you got them to laugh, hold on to that. When you tried to make this shot go a certain way and you actually executed that, hold on to that and be thankful and glad that you did those things. That's fuel for the fire, man. That helps you feel like you're actually getting somewhere. You're seeing some progress.
And that's where like a sizzle reel can be really awesome, right? Where you take all the cool things that you did and you mash them together into one video with some sweet, awesome music, even though that's kind of illegal. But like you do that, and like you can be like, wow, I did some really cool stuff, right? And it's really easy to like, for me at least, to focus on all the stuff that I didn't do really well instead of looking at that one thing. Like Eris Eleanor, the last short film that I did, where like the oneer at the beginning of the movie, this one shot that we did, and we did not hide edits. Like we actually shot it, and it's great for me, like like for where we are, it's great. And then like you can look at other parts of the movie and be like, yeah, okay, and that's fine because we're practicing, we're learning, we're still learning how to do stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it that's about just having fun with it too. I mean, like, I love holding on to those one moments that make you smile, and I feel like that's true in art, it's true in sports, it's true in everything. It's like, I play disc golf professionally in my spare time, and I could have a horrible round, but that one good shot, that one moment in that round keeps me coming back to do it again and again and again. So find that moment, find the moment that's going to keep you coming back to do it again.
Well, and I'm a big fan when it comes to production of not over encumbering yourself with stuff, because it's way too easy to take way too much time trying to do all the things rather than just focusing on one thing. And like even with this podcast, like episode 1, it's like, okay, can we get the frame? Can we get us into the picture? And then it's like on the next episode, it's like, can we get better audio? And it was like, no. And then it was like, okay, can we get better audio the third time, right? And so we're still trying to learn, even in this show. And like, I'm a professional filmmaker. I get paid to like do media.
Me too.
Right? So like the fact
Not
that,
me.
Right. Well, kind of. You're helping us out a little bit, and you kind of get a little bit paid for that.
That's true.
Not that I pay you, but okay. But like, there's stuff where, even when you get to a certain level, you're still going to be learning and trying things. And I think that's something that's important to think about, even with these major Hollywood productions that you go to, where you're like, wow, I didn't really like that movie. Well, why? Well, because maybe they're still trying things too and still learning how to do stuff, or there were other things that were affecting it.
Or they just made stupid decisions.
I mean, that's possible too, but don't let that hold you back from moving forward and making another movie.
Keep trying, yeah.
Think about it this way. Like, there's been so much innovation in film throughout the years, and we went pretty in depth on visual effects on our last episode. But what happens if George Lucas doesn't try new things? I mean, Star Wars doesn't happen, right? I mean, going all the way back to Citizen Kane, which is arguably one of the best films ever made, black and white, back in the day, they were cutting edge in what they did. So try some stuff. Have fun with it. Like, you don't get greatness in film without making those mistakes along the way.
I think it's also important to note that you are coming into, and people talk about how young film is, but film has been around for over 100 years. So you're coming into something that has existed for a century, and you're trying to catch up, right? So, like, it's okay if your stuff doesn't look great. Like, you can go back to earlier stuff and be like, okay, their stuff doesn't look great either. And now we're adding extra technical difficulty because people expect your film to look awesome, to have great color, to be well lit, to have good sound, to have great music, to have cool special effects, to have great title, like all this stuff where, like, you go back and, like, no, they didn't need to do that. And so give yourself some grace in what you're trying to accomplish, but also push yourself forward because you have tools that, I didn't have growing up trying to make movies. Like, your phone has more resolution and editing power than any of the cameras and any of the computers that I had access to all the way through college.
Well, that's true, and I just want you to know, remember, Luke is the technical guy here. He loved it. It's what got him into movie making in the first place. As a story guy, I would just like to remind you that the real thing you're going to be practicing this entire time, especially if you want to get good at anything, is how to tell a story and what's worth telling. That's what you're really practicing constantly. Now, I'm not saying you can't, can I do like a crazy cool shot that does this? Do it, man. How many stories I've been like, I don't want to think about a story right now. I just want to make, can I make cool shots stringing together that make me feel something? But even when you get to a certain point, you'll start to learn that, even when you're just improvising and trying to do that, you're going to start wanting to weave some sort of tale, some sort of protagonist, some sort of meaning, some sort of emotion you're trying to get across. And that is the fundamental core of it. So have fun. Try your technical stuff. Don't beat yourself up, but, try to tell a story. Remember, that's what you're doing. And if you're not doing that, you're just experimenting and trying out techniques. You're not doing anything anyone's probably going to want to watch.
Oh. Okay, so Scott,
Yes.
I think what I'm interested in right now, especially because of storytelling and these kinds of things, is where are you exploring? What are you finding difficult? Where are you getting hung up in making productions yourselves? Like, what's the holdup? Why aren't you doing it?
Why am I not doing more? Well, for me, the easy answer is time. I just spread myself way too thin and do too many things. And making a film, no matter how much you think you can streamline it, it takes time. The Mona Lisa wasn't painted overnight. So you've got to make the time for it. And there are other things that I choose to spend my time on. So that's why I'm not producing more at this point in my life. That being said, yeah, I've got a GoPro, and I would love to go make a little ski movie. So if someone wants to come skiing with me, I'll put you on film, and we'll put something out there.
So your next assignment, whether you choose to accept it or not, is to make Hardcore Henry the ski edition with yourself. Get on it.
If several people aren't dismembered by the ski sticks or something,
you
in
failed.
first person, you failed the project.
The good news is you work on ski patrol and stuff, so you can just use all that footage. Okay, Jonathan.
Wow. Why have I not done more productions lately?
Like now, yeah.
Like now. That is, yes, I can obviously say time. You get older to the point where you have a job and you gotta live life. But really, the thing that's stopping me is I just haven't written anything that I can actually shoot yet. I have multiple ideas in my head, and I've been trying to get myself to put them onto paper and then to do that multiple times and edit them so they're actually decent, so that when I actually ask friends to come alongside me and try to make something, that it has a good chance of actually being hopefully something I want to be. If there's not a script that's somewhere solid, I don't see the point in going. But at the same time, there is a value. I've one of the last little projects I did was sadly a little while ago, but it was just me and a buddy in a church, and we were just, okay, we got a camera, let's just see if we could get some shots that do this, that, and the other, and putting it together and just throwing, editing it together, throwing a little audio track on it, and just letting it play. it's kind of fun. You know, it's fun to see just the visual language and things that have already increased. But the thing that stopped me is I haven't had a story written down that I am willing to spend the energy, time, and ask people to come alongside me in making.
So your assignment, whether you choose to accept it or not, is to write more so that we can get there.
Great. I'll just keep that assignment I've put on myself for the last 5 years and see if suddenly it happens.
Yeah. So my problem is that I struggle with story. Like everything you're talking about is what I struggle with, what you were talking about.
I'm here to help.
Yeah, I know. And the other challenge is that I get fixated on a theme or a concept that I really want to make a film about. And I'm currently and have been stuck on that for years. And yes, I can say, oh, I don't have time. I've got a kid. And it's true. I do have all of that. It is hindering it. But at the same time, as fried as I am at the end of the day, if I actually get excited about something that I'm working on, I will totally just jump in and work on it. And I'm currently not excited because I'm stuck on what is the story to help me go through this theme and just all of that. So that's currently where I'm stuck with it. And that's where story is vitally important.
Well, that's I mean, we could go a whole episode on just that concept alone of do you start from a concept and theme and try to do a story around that, and how would you execute that and work that out? Because in your case, like you said, it's been hindering to you because you just care about this idea and you don't every story that's come along has not been something of interest to you. So you're totally bored by everything you're writing because you basically want to write an essay. And so there's a whole, should you just write an essay? Should you still wrestle with that and try to tell a story? There's a lot of, there's a lot of things you can get into the more you get into the process of trying to tell a story, doing filmmaking. But like we said earlier, and here's the thing I would tell you, especially if you're young, take school projects where they're like, do a project for this, literature piece or do a project for this thing, and go get your camera and some friends and do that project through a video. Make sure your teacher's cool with it, but like just do your project as a video. Tell a story that way. That's how I've done a good chunk of some of my, well, not my finer work, but some of the work I really loved when I was in high school. I just had school projects that gave me an excuse and a double motive to, okay, let's do this video. And, you practice, you have fun, you have something you have a structure and a need, you have to explain X thing, you have to tell X story, and you don't have to come up with it. You have to adapt it. You have to work with it. You have to find a way to make it interesting. And that's a really good exercise as well.
That is a good idea.
I mean, anytime you can shoot video and try and piece it together, it counts, guys. You're making movies, just so you know.
Like we're making some film stuff right now.
That is true.
Luke just always wants to drop the mic. I don't get it.
These mics are so droppable. Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Can we do a visual effect on that so it looks better?
Can? Sure. Will? No.
Now. All right, guys. As we kind of wrap up this idea of filmmaking, and as much as we've said, hey, just get out there and do it, I kind of want to take a step and go look at that next step as well. So what is the one thing that someone can do on their second film? Some piece of equipment they can buy, something different than just get out and make it, that you would recommend for them?
Well, I wouldn't go and buy more equipment unless you were unable to do what you needed to do with your equipment that you had, because you can push.
Caveat, some of the things you may want to do may cost millions of dollars and require very specialty talent that you do not have access to. That doesn't mean that suddenly you need that to make the next step in your film.
Yeah, so I would actually say don't try and buy equipment. Don't try and replace equipment. There are things that you should always focus on when you're still getting started. And I would say that because I'm still getting started, I feel like I'm still getting started, I'm still working on, which is lighting and sound. And that is really where you should focus. And that doesn't mean you need to go buy lights and you need to go buy really fancy sound equipment. What it means is you need to learn how to use what you have and what you have access to get better light and better sound. And that might mean, okay, you actually have to turn off the fridge. And that may be if you just learn to do that when you're shooting in the kitchen, like that will help you tremendously. And oh my goodness, maybe I should have the people face toward the light, that's streaming through the window instead of being backlit by it. And like that's okay. Like just focus on the basics, I think, as you're telling a story to get those skills down, because as fancy and as fun as like bullet time is and all that kind of stuff, that's really not the thing that's most important. What's most important is your sound and your light so that people can hear and see what it is that you're trying to do.
In a more abstract way of what he just said practically and specifically is just you need to learn to make choices. You need to learn how to everything. So if you just made one film on your phone or something, great. I'm proud of you. Did you think of, not only sound and lighting, which are huge, multifaceted concepts and full of stuff to learn, but just go back to that camera. How did you frame things? And by frame things, I mean, where'd you put the camera and where were the things you were looking at in the camera? Where were they on the frame? Did they look good? Did they look bad? Did they make you feel something? Or was it the wrong feeling? Was it not what you were going for? Was something, the most basic thing is you couldn't see what you were trying to see, right? So you can try to correct that. But beyond that, there's a lot of choices to be made. How close are you to somebody? How far away from somebody are you? Are they sort of overpowered by this big world around them, or are they sort of the only thing in focus and the rest of the world is out? Like doesn't matter anymore. It's only them. Is it their eyes that matter that you're looking at? Is it something about an object in their hand that you're focusing on? There are so many things, and within that, an object in your hand. From what direction around the hand do you look? Do you look top down at it? Do you look from the ground up? Do you look from the left side, the right side, at an angle, a little bit high, a little bit low? Why? And it's a thing where in some cases, right, you may not know what, like there isn't necessarily a right or wrong, right? You need to see the object in the person's hand. You need to know it's significant. And all those options will technically get you there. But what's the decision that for some reason to you in your head and when you look at it and when people see it feels right and means something? Like that alone is an art that you are constantly learning no matter what level of skill you are.
Yeah, and I think that leads into one of the things that I think I learned from first film to second film. And part of it is just shoot the footage already. Like, don't worry about how much time you're wasting, how much space you're wasting on the camera. Shoot it again. Like, if you are uncertain, shoot it from 5 different angles, then take it into your computer, throw them all in there one at a time, and see which one you like best.
And that's what I was going to say is whether it's on your phone, but I would prefer myself, and I would if you can, I get access to editing software of some kind on a computer or a laptop or something where you can kind of have a bigger screen. You can see a little bit more what's going on, have a bit more control. And the reason for that is because that's where the last bit of magic happens. They say you write a movie 3 times, you write the script, you kind of write it again when you're performing it and shooting it. But really the last time that really counts potentially the most is the editing process, because it's where everything's stitched together and you put music or not, and you kind of find out what actually happened, and you have your last chance to solve problems and to make ingenious decisions and to make things awesome. And that's where it kind of comes together. And that's music. I mean, editing is where you have a long time to sit with what you did. So if you have bad sound, it doesn't feel good, but you sit with it. You sit with all this footage with bad sound, and you have to try to solve it or live with it and realize you need to do something else next time. If you have bad shots, you have to sit with it, live with it, and learn how to do better next time. Editing is where you're going to see it come to life or you're going to see it die. And it's going to hurt sometimes, but it's also the place where it's going to be like, you're going to be so excited because you're going to be the first person who sees that thing come together, and you're going to know it. You're going to know it in your gut, in your heart. You're going to be like, oh man, that right there, that's awesome. That's working for some reason. Like all that's coming together. I can't wait to show somebody how this comes together.
And I would say 2 more things. 1, go manual as much as possible with your camera. Stop using autofocus. Like, it's fine to do it if you're just getting started, but like if you're on your second or third film or whatever and you're still using autofocus, like turn that off. Turn off the auto exposure stuff. Like lock it in and take control, because stuff shifts around on you and it's better to be in control of that. And then the second thing is go short, because it enables you to learn the things that you've just done wrong and then keep going. And you don't get stuck in these long-term projects that are really important, which is where I'm stuck right now. It's this big project that's really important, which is why I'm not making any films, and which means I'm not getting better. So I probably need to take these short times and make shorts and little things and just for fun and like maybe a scene that just makes me feel something. So go short to really get those skills down.
Maybe a way to put that is, if you can, shoot long, deliver short.
And now we just need to take our own advice and see if that actually happens.
Never gonna happen. Never. That's right. Get out of here. Take my own advice.
All right, guys, we are just about running out of time. So to close out the show once again, I'm going to ask you my favorite question. What are you looking forward to watching?
Not a dang thing. Wait, what?
I'm looking forward to watching YouTube videos on making films, and so I enjoy doing that. And instead of making films, I enjoy watching stuff about other people's films. Thanks for watching our stuff. We like that. But I'm looking forward to some of that stuff, and maybe I'll provide a couple links down below. Again, for things that are interesting or people who are doing stuff that's really good about how to do stuff. That's what I'm looking forward to, because it's the only thing that I take the time to watch.
Jonathan?
You know what? I thought about it for a second. I had one of these new movies coming out that I was like, maybe I should. No, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'd like to shift this to a movie I just watched. I'd like to just recommend it. You've probably heard about it or seen it at this point, but I recently rewatched The Hunger Games: Catching Fire, and that is the second of the 4 movies that came out. Now, I don't know how familiar you may be with the franchise. I watched all the movies. I never read any of the books. I think the first movie is certainly serviceable and does a good job of setting up the world and the characters and everything. And if you haven't seen that one, you might want to check that one out so you sort of know what's happening in that story. But then go watch Hunger Games: Catching Fire. That movie is really well put together, and it's one of those things where, again, all the different parts that had to play a part did a really good job. And the music's really good by James Newton Howard, and the direction I think is solid. The acting's great. The story itself is just really fun. And again, it's based off a book, and from what I've heard, that's the most fun, the best book. And there's a reason for it. The way that story progresses and intrigues you and is complex. It's just really fun. So it's not the best movie in the world, not by a long stretch, but it's a really, really solid movie that surprises me and how good it is. So I'd say check that out. Even, and especially like if you're wanting to make films and stuff, just take a second and think about what the last shot of the movie is and how or why does that movie, like why does that shot work to be the end of the movie?
Cool. We are definitely getting to the point in the year where we are pre-summer on, all these movies coming out. I'm hoping that there are more good options picking up, but the movie I'm going to leave you with tonight, since I'm not going to say Mulan, since we've already talked about that in a previous episode, I'm going to say a movie called The Lovebirds. And honestly, I don't know a whole lot about it, but the guy making it, Kumal, however you say his last name, he's made a bunch of fun movies that I've enjoyed, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what's next for him. And the previews that I've seen so far look kind of silly, kind of stupid, not all that great, but it should be an interesting movie. So that's the movie I want to check out, mostly because I want to see what he's making next. All right. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody.
We really like having you here.
Indeed.
Please come again.
Did you just them?